Hey, what's up guys, Lux here bringing you a new video, and today we're going to be taking a look at LEGO set 75299, Trouble on Tatooine. This set comes with 276 pieces and retails for $30 in the United States. A very nice set here, especially based off Season 2 of The Mandalorian, the first episode, Chapter 9, The Marshal. If you guys have seen that episode, it's a pretty neat one, definitely a highlight from that season, and a pretty good episode all around. This, as you can see, is trying to represent that based on the environment in the background, the Mandalorian Grogu being there in his updated year, as well as the Ballista and the Tuscan Raider being included in the set. If we take a look at the back of the box, we'll get a little bit of a closer look at what's included here. We got the Ballista up here. We got a little bit of a campfire and the ability to open up the campsite or the little hut from the Tuscan Raider himself, and we can put Grogu in his little pouch here, which we'll take a closer look at when we get into the build. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, here's the build in its entirety. But first, as always, we're going to be taking a look at the minifigures. Alright, first off here, we have the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin, I believe that was his name. We have him in his full Beskar outfit. Now, this is definitely a much needed improvement from the previous Mandalorian that we got from the Season 1 sets with his non-Beskar armor. You can see a lot of neat details on here, and the very shiny armor. The helmet, definitely a much needed improvement as well. This is a lot more shinier gray for his helmet, or gunmetal gray. I like how that turned out. Obviously the armor on his chest and his leg printing, very reflective, very neat to see on him. You can see a lot of detail with the strap around his chest, the belt, all the good stuff. We can see he's wearing a cape as well, as you know is typical for him. If we look underneath the cape, we can see another metal plate in the back of the Beskar, obviously. Definitely a very well and upgraded figure here. You can also see the symbol, the little rhino creature that he defeated with Grogu in that one episode as well. You can see the symbol on there. Just a very well and needed upgrade for sure. He has both his weapons. He has a small blaster here. Nice rifle that disintegrates people in one shot. So that's really neat to get here. Obviously doesn't look exactly like it, but they try to represent it as well as they could by building it out like that. We look under his helmet, no face. They still want to keep his face a secret, or just not as prominent. They just give us a black head underneath, like the previous Mandalorian figure. But yeah, that's been Din Djarin, that's been the Mandalorian. Very good figure. Obviously we're getting more of him now, but at the time that they released this set, it was definitely very desirable. Anyways, moving on. Next up here, we have the Tuscan Raider. Now, given that the set is based off Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian, aka Season 2, Episode 1, we get to see a Tuscan Raider here. They were very prominent in that first episode. If you know anything about it, they played a very big part in taking down that sandworm. This is a very good Tuscan Raider here. The head mold is very nice. The same one they use in that one Tatoowine battle pack, if you remember that. The robes look nice, well detailed. In the back you can see more printing, like the strap there as well. The head is the big part, very nice, very big improvement from what it was back in the day. Very well and neatly detailed, and they give him a little staff that you typically find a Tuscan Raider having. So yeah, very good figure as well. Isn't a nice little way to get one of them. You don't have them yet, or not really a good way to army build them, but nice to get them out of the way, and definitely fits the scenery and episode for sure. Anyways, that's been the Tuscan Raider. Last but certainly not least here, we have Baby Yoda, or Grogu here. Now, he was previously only available in the Razor Crest, and I believe some other sets that were not at the $30 range. So this is a very big appeal to this set. Obviously now, we might expect him to be in future Mandalorian sets, so maybe you want to hold off on that. You can wait. If not though, this is still the cheapest way to get it. Definitely a nice figure. Obviously, the fact that they used the regular Lego baby body mold is a little disappointing. They could have very easily justified making body mold to make him look more accurate, but either way the printing's alright. No printing in the back as you would expect from these baby figures, but we got Grogu, so that's pretty neat. If you don't have one yet, definitely recommend picking one of these up. You can definitely wait it out. Probably eventually come out in a cheaper set, or possibly just a set that you would want to pick up in the future. So yeah, that's been Grogu. Now we're done looking at the figures. We're going to take a look at the builds. Alright, now we're done with the figures. We take a look at the build in a much closer manner. So first off here we have the bike build. Now as I mentioned before, this set is based on Season 2, Episode 1, Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian, The Marshal. And in that episode, we do indeed see the Mandalorian, spoilers, ride a bike through the desert to reach the Tuscan Raiders. We'll get into more of that a little bit later. And this bike, in my opinion, is probably one of the best bikes that's been released recently, I'll be honest. We did see a speeder bike in a different set close to this one's release, and that was the 501st Battle Pack. Now that speeder, in my opinion, was a little bit more oversized. I like the small compact speeders where you understand what it is, it has good detail, but are not too overly sized to try to pack as much detail as possible. Like this, you can see a lot of detail here on the side. The front here, you can tell there's going to be some blasters here. You can see the handles in the front, and obviously in the back here there's even greater detail where we have a little bit of a backpack here for storage for the Mandalorian to keep, as well as Grogu or Baby Yoda on a little bit of a pouch here as well, making sure he watches him the whole time. So yeah, I'm a very big fan of this bike, and while it's not a one-to-one representation of the bike they use in the show, you know, it gets the idea across, and I think, again, this bike build, I'm a very big fan of in Lego form. So yeah, that's been the bike. Moving on. Next up here, we're going to be taking a look at the Ballista Build. Now this one as well also played a pretty, I want to say, important role in the episode, but you know, we saw a couple of them spread about when they fought the giant sandworm. So these Ballista Builds, at least this one in particular in Lego form, it looks very nice. You can see, starting from the back here, we can see the launcher obviously being this little gun handle. We can see these lever mechanisms twisting and turning, obviously meant to represent pulling back on the ballista bullet. The strings here as well, typical to see from a bow or a ballista. We can see the flick fire missile up here, which we'll get into in a little bit. Moving further and to the front, the main part of the build, you can see this X shape, obviously meant to represent what's holding the string to pull back on the ballista bullet or arrow, whatever you want to call it. And down here, we also see a little bit of a stand for this ballista bullet, and as well as a translucent brick, just to evenly distribute the weight and hold up this big, enormous build. A lot of little details here as well. You can see a little bit of this wheel. You can lower it down. You can put it back up. Nothing too insane, but obviously the main feature and reason this ballista's in here is to shoot the flick fire missile that's on top of it. So let me set up this Tuscan Raider here. Now, this little flick fire missile, it's very easy to shoot, way easier than previous ones. Whether I hit this Tuscan Raider, you know, doesn't really matter here. You're just going to see it whish by. Now, if I flick it once, oh, I hit him. But obviously, he went off the screen. Similarly, also, the ballista bullet, luckily we found it. Usually you lose these things pretty easily. This set comes with two of these. I lost the first one, but we got this one. And I didn't lose it in that representation. So we are chilling. But yeah, you get a good idea of how it works. Shoots pretty fast, very good for play. And if you're just trying to display it, you know, that's something to keep in mind. The missile can go flying very easily if you try to pick it up the wrong way. So yeah, besides that, very good ballista build. Big fan of it. Looks pretty good. And obviously a good representation of what happened or is represented in the show / episode. Alright, moving on to the final build. Here we have the Tuscan Raiders Hut. We see a big village with the Tuscan Raiders where the Mandalorian visits, and they got little huts. This isn't an exact representation, but you know what they're trying to represent. Just little homes, little huts, tiki type builds. Very basic for people living out in the sand, in the desert. I'd be happy with this environment if I was stuck out there. But taking a closer look here, we can see a few things that it has here. So we have a campfire out here. Obviously in the desert it gets real cold, so you're going to want a little bit of a campfire. We can open this up, very neat feature here. We can also just levitate the roof portion of this hut to get a closer look at what's inside and put a little bit more light in. Doesn't really matter, it's just a little bit of a feature on some joints. Obviously, you guys know how that would work. We can see some seats inside, nothing too crazy. We see this little pole, not sure what this is trying to represent exactly. Maybe just the center of the hut, you know, what's holding up all the, I would assume would be fabric. But in this case, the roof build in this Lego set. Look in here, we can see a little bit of a bowl. So probably something they eat off of, or maybe it's a table. Probably more closely to a table, because here we have a little bit of a pot. It's cooking up a bone. You know, no meat on that bone, so you know they're struggling. Yeah, obviously this pot would be cooked over the campfire or wherever it may be, just located right here in the side of the huts. But yeah, that's the hut build. Nothing too insane, pretty simplistic, but gets the idea across. We did see a glimpse of the Tuscan Raiders homes here, so this obviously is trying to represent that. Again, pretty good representation of what happened in the episode. 3 different features, all definitely prominent in that episode. Well, alright guys, that is pretty much it for this set. Obviously not too much to take a look at here. 3 small builds in a $30 set. I'd say at the time this was definitely 100% worth it. Now more so, not as much. The main appeal was in fact this Mandalorian figure that we took a look at with all the great detail. Obviously getting Grogu in a pretty cheap set. If you still need the Mandalorian and Grogu and you don't plan on picking up any of the other future Mandalorian sets, then sure, that can definitely be worth it, given that Grogu is still not available in a relatively cheap set. But if you already have this updated Mandalorian plus the Grogu figure, you're really just paying for the Tuscan Raider and these little Ballista Speeder and Hut build, which are nice, but nothing too insane and something you should really go out and try to get. Still, if you don't have these, this is definitely a nice little addition. Obviously, if you like the first episode of Season 2, you're going to like this little homage to it, or what the set is trying to represent. So, yeah, not a bad set all around. Still pretty solid set, just not as, desirable as when it first came out, in my opinion. But, yeah, guys, if you enjoyed, you know what to do. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.